December 7, 1941. The United States Navy was on its knees. The battleships were burning in the mud of Pearl Harbor. The Pacific was, for all strategic purposes, a Japanese lake. But history turns on strange hinges. In less than 4 years, that broken fleet would transform into the largest armada the human race has ever built. By 1945, the U.S. Navy possessed 6,768 ships. But in that ocean of gray steel, there were a select few vessels that were different. These weren't just ships, they were executioners. They didn't just fight the Imperial Japanese Navy, they dismantled it, piece by piece. Today, we are going deep into the archives to rank the top 5 most lethal U.S. Navy ships of World War II. We aren't just counting tonnage. We are looking for the ships that broke the enemy's back. From the silent assassins beneath the waves to the lone survivor that held the line when all hope was lost. Let's sound general quarters. Before we enter the top 5, we must salute the ships that defined lethality through sheer ferocity, even if they didn't survive the war. First, the USS Johnston, DD 557. At the battle off Samar, this tiny destroyer charged the largest battleship ever built, the Yamato. Commander Ernest Evans gave the order. All engines ahead flank, commencing torpedo run. The Johnston was destroyed, but she fought with such violence that the Japanese battleships retreated, believing they were facing a massive cruiser force. She proved that lethality is as much about psychology as it is about firepower. Second, the USS Archerfish, SS-311. This submarine holds the record for the largest single warship ever sunk by a sub. In November 1944, she stalked and sank the Shinano, a Japanese aircraft carrier converted from a Yamato-class hull. One torpedo spread, 59,000 tons sent to the bottom. A strategic masterstroke. But our top 5 did more than win a single engagement. They dominated entire campaigns. Coming in at number 5 is a ship that physically shouldn't be on this list. It wasn't a mighty battleship. It was a Buckley-class destroyer escort. Cheap, mass-produced, and slow. This is the USS England. To understand why she is here, you have to understand the terror of May 1944. The U.S. fleet was preparing to invade the Marianas. The Japanese Navy knew something was coming. They established a picket line of submarines, a trap designed to ambush American carriers. The USS England was sent to clear the lane. What happened next is a record that has never been broken in the history of naval warfare. On May 19th, her sonar picked up a contact. She didn't use standard depth charges. She used a secret weapon called the Hedgehog. Unlike depth charges, which explode on a timer, Hedgehogs only explode on contact. If you hear an explosion, you know you hit the sub. May 19th, she sinks the I-16. May 22nd, she hunts down the RO-106. May 23rd, the RO-104. May 24th, the RO-116. May 26th, the RO-108. And finally, on May 31st, she destroys the RO-105. 6 submarines in 12 days. Most destroyers went the entire war without confirming a single submarine kill. The England wiped out an entire Japanese scouting line single-handedly. Chief of Naval Operations Ernest King famously said, "There'll always be an England in the United States Navy." Her lethality wasn't just about sinking ships. It blinded the Japanese Navy right before the Battle of the Philippine Sea, saving countless American lives. At number 4, we have the only American battleship to win a one-on-one duel in the Pacific, the USS Washington. By 1942, the world believed the battleship was obsolete. Aircraft carriers were the new queens. But nobody told Admiral Willis Ching Lee. Lee was a genius of a new technology: radar fire control. November 14, 1942. The naval battle of Guadalcanal. It is pitch black. The Iron Bottom Sound is a graveyard of ships. A U.S. task force is ambushed by a massive Japanese fleet, including the fast battleship Kirishima. The American battleship USS South Dakota suffers a catastrophic electrical failure. She is blind. The Japanese searchlights find her. The Kirishima hammers the South Dakota, setting her superstructure on fire. But the Japanese didn't see the Washington. Admiral Lee used the burning South Dakota as bait. He crept the Washington to within 8,400 yards of the Kirishima. For a 16-inch gun, this is point-blank range, knife-fighting distance. At 0005 hours, the Washington opened fire. Using radar to track the splashes, she landed 9 16-inch shells and over 45-inch rounds on the Kirishima in just 7 minutes. The Kirishima was gutted. Her rudder was jammed, her turrets knocked out, her hull ripped open. She capsized and sank. The Washington then turned on her searchlights, revealing herself to draw fire away from the crippled South Dakota, and vanished back into the night. It was a masterclass in lethality. She proved that American technology allowed them to see in the dark and kill what they found. Number 3 is the wolf that hunted the hardest. The USS Tang. U.S. submarines were responsible for sinking 55% of all Japanese naval tonnage during the war, and the Tang was the deadliest of them all. Her commander, Richard O'Kane, rewrote the book on submarine warfare. Before O'Kane, submarines would submerge and fire from a distance. O'Kane preferred to fight on the surface, at night, right in the middle of enemy convoys. He would sprint between Japanese merchant ships, using their overlapping silhouettes to confuse their gunners, firing torpedoes from the bow and stern simultaneously. In just 5 patrols, the Tang was officially credited with sinking 24 Japanese ships, totaling over 93,000 tons. O'Kane himself claimed 33. On her 5th and final patrol in the Formosa Strait, she was a machine of destruction. She sank so many ships that she literally ran out of torpedoes. But the Tang carries a dark irony. October 24, 1944. The Tang fires her very last torpedo, a Mark 18 electric, at a crippled transport. The torpedo malfunctioned. It breached the surface, turned hard left, and circled back. O'Kane tried to maneuver, but it was too late. The Tang was torpedoed by her own weapon. She sank instantly. Only 9 men, including O'Kane, survived to become POWs. The only thing lethal enough to kill the USS Tang was the USS Tang. At number 2, we have the ship that represents the moment the United States decided to stop fighting fair, the USS Essex. While other ships on this list were lone warriors, the Essex was the lead ship of a new class, the Sunday Punch. 24 Essex-class carriers were built. They were faster, carried more planes, and had better anti-aircraft guns than anything the Japanese possessed. The Essex herself participated in 68 combat operations, but her lethality is best understood by the Battle of the Philippine Sea. In June 1944, the Essex and her sister ships faced the last great sortie of the Japanese naval air arm. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. American pilots, launching from Essex decks, shot down over 400 Japanese aircraft in what became known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. The Essex was lethal because she was unkillable. In November 1944, she was hit by a kamikaze. In previous years, that might have sunk a carrier. The Essex crew extinguished the fire and resumed flight operations in 30 minutes. The Essex class collectively sank more tonnage than any other class of ship in naval history. They were the hammer that smashed the Imperial Navy into dust. But there can be only one number one, the most decorated ship in the history of the United States Navy, the Gray Ghost, the USS Enterprise. Why is she above the Essex? Because the Essex fought when America was winning. The Enterprise fought when America was losing. 1942. The Pacific was a graveyard for American carriers. The Lexington was lost at Coral Sea, the Yorktown at Midway, the Wasp and Hornet in the Solomons. For a terrifying period in late 1942, the USS Enterprise was the only operational American carrier in the entire Pacific Ocean. On her flight deck sat the fate of the Western world. The crew hung a sign on the hangar deck, Enterprise versus Japan. She was present at Pearl Harbor. Her dive bombers sank the Japanese carriers Akagi and Kaga at Midway, turning the tide of the war. She held the line at Guadalcanal. The Japanese claimed to have sunk her 3 separate times. But every time the smoke cleared, the Gray Ghost was still there, launching planes. She absorbed punishment that would have vaporized other ships. In May 1945, a kamikaze piloted by Tomi Zai crashed into her forward elevator, blowing it 400 feet into the air. She didn't sink. She steamed home under her own power. She earned 20 battle stars. She sank 71 ships and destroyed 911 enemy aircraft. She wasn't just a ship. She was the spirit of the U.S. Navy. The atomic bomb may have ended the war in August 1945, but the England, the Washington, the Tang, the Essex, and the Enterprise are the ones who fought their way to the doorstep. They represent the evolution of the U.S. Navy, from a broken fleet in the mud of Pearl Harbor to the most lethal fighting force the oceans have ever seen. We know the list is controversial. Should the USS Johnston have been in the top 5? Did we ignore your favorite submarine? Head down to the comments and fire your broadside. If you enjoyed this deep dive into naval history, verify your range and hit that subscribe button. This is Microdocs. Thanks for watching.